In today's video, we're going to take a look at the countries with the most and the least millionaires on this very planet. Based on this report published by Swiss bank Credit Suisse, okay, it's according to 2021, there were a total of 56 million people worldwide whose assets exceeded $1 million. Okay, that is a staggering amount of people. And based on all the millionaires that exist in this world, 40% lived in the United States. Wow, mind-boggling, absolutely mind-boggling, considering that the United States really only makes up for what? Maybe like 4% of the world's population, yet the United States is home to over 40% of millionaires that exist on this planet. Absolutely incredible. What's also incredible is the total net worth held by all the millionaires in the world, which happens to be $158 trillion. A tremendous amount of money, right? Now you might think, how did they determine that? Well, Swiss bank Credit Suisse took a look at bank accounts, hard assets, crypto accounts, financial assets, stocks, whatever they considered for this very report study. And I want now to break it down so you can see, so we can determine the countries with the most and the least millionaires. We're talking percentage-wise, right? Let's have a look at the countries, and then we can take a look at continents and then see how many millionaires existed in the different continents of this planet. Let's have a look at the numbers of US dollar millionaires by country. And the United States had a total of 24,480,000 millionaires, okay? Which again is roughly 40% of the global amount of millionaires. Then number two, we have China. What's interesting about China is that China has 6,190,000 millionaires. That's only 0.6% of the population, not a whole lot. Then Japan, number three is Japan, right? 3.365 million millionaires in Japan, which happens to be 3.2% of Japan's population. Number four, United Kingdom, with a total of 2,849,000 millionaires, which happens to be 5.4% of the UK's population. Number five, France, 2,796,000 millionaires, which happens to be 5.6% of France's population. Then Germany, 2.638 million millionaires, 3.9% of the population. Let's have a look at the countries with the highest percentage of millionaires of their adult population. And what we can see here is that the number one spot is taken by Luxembourg, okay? A microstate, not sure if you can call it a country, but it's pretty small, and 16.3% of Luxembourg's population happens to be millionaires, okay? An incredible amount. Number two, Switzerland. Nothing new here, right? It comes as expected. 15.5% of Switzerland's population happens to be millionaires, or 1,151,000 millionaires in Switzerland. An incredible amount. Number three, Australia. 11.2% of Australia's population happens to be millionaires, or 2,176,000 millionaires in Australia. Now we could go on and on and on here. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that some places have a higher percentage of millionaires than others. You want to have a look at the countries with the least millionaires, percentage-wise, right? The countries we're talking about here include India. Okay, India, the most populous country in the entire world, has only 769,000 millionaires. That's not a whole lot, because that's only 0.1% of India's population. Staggering, right? And then another country, Indonesia, large country, right? The largest Muslim country in the entire world, and also the largest by population country in Southeast Asia. Indonesia only had 191,000 millionaires. That's what, 0.1% of Indonesia's population. Egypt, also a very populous country. Only 0.1% of Egypt's population happens to be millionaires. Anyway, what I'm trying to say here is that the difference between rich and poor in countries like India, Egypt, China is massive. I mean, the difference between the super rich and the middle class working Americans is also pretty big, right? But there is a much bigger wealth gap in emerging countries, in developing countries on a continent basis. And I actually don't think that the first line is correct, because it says North America has 24,480,000 millionaires, but that's a total number of millionaires in the United States. So they haven't really included Canada and Mexico, two countries that are also part of North America. So something got messed up in the statistics here. So It's actually not very accurate, but the number would actually be much higher if they had included Mexico and also Canada. If Mexico was included, the percentage of adult millionaires would probably go down by a lot. Number 2 comes Europe, okay? Europe had 16,696,000 millionaires, which happens to be 2.7% of Europe's population. Number 3, Asia Pacific, not including China, had a grand total of 10,755,000 millionaires, which happens to be 0.8% of Asia Pacific's population. Number 4, China. And now the bottom 3 continents, you can guess: Latin America, 915,000 millionaires, it's not a whole lot, or 0.2% of Latin America's population. Then India, not really a continent, but India had only 0.1% millionaires. But anyway, the bottom ranking, call it now continent, of this statistics happens to be Africa, with only 352,000 millionaires, which is less than 0.1% of Africa's population. 40% of millionaires in the United States did it through real estate. Okay, that's a lot. But there are many who did it for business transactions. There are many that did it through like stock trading. You know, there are many that did it through different means. Inheritance, of course, consulting, network marketing, and the list goes on. I also wanted to throw some Bitcoin crypto data in here because I think it makes it a bit exciting. We all know that the all-time high of crypto occurred in actually late 2021. And at that time, we had a total of 100,000 Bitcoin millionaires. How did they measure it? Well, they took a look at, you know, the accounts, you know, like the wallets, and they saw, okay, people held so and so many Bitcoins. And at the time of taking the screenshots, you know, a Bitcoin was worth X amount of dollars. And then they multiplied that by how many Bitcoins they had, and that's how they came up with that number, right? And that was as of late 2021, the all-time high that we experienced in the crypto market and also for Bitcoin. Now that obviously has changed because as of right now, you know, Bitcoin went down a lot and the crypto market tanked. 70 to 80% of Bitcoin millionaires that existed back in late 2021 no longer exist today because those people did not liquidate. They just held the crypto, Bitcoin in this case, and their value actually went down. So 70 to 80% of Bitcoin millionaires were actually wiped in the first and second quarter of 2022. So not so pleasant news for those people. The last thing I wanted to talk about in this video is, of course, why many people are unlikely to move to emerging markets. Now imagine you are from North America, you are from Europe, and you made your money, you made your millions in either real estate, business, you know, you had a company selling products. However you made your money, you're just less likely to move to certain emerging markets, especially the East, because first of all, you're not going to liquidate the money that you have back home and bring it over because you cannot buy the same assets in those emerging markets that you could back home for a number of reasons. First of all, you can't own property, you know, so even if you liquidated your property back home, wherever home is for you, if home is the United States, Canada, or if home is Northern Europe, the UK, Portugal, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, wherever your home might be, you can't really liquidate that and buy property in certain countries. You're not allowed to own property. You're not allowed to own land. So people are less likely to do it. Instead of liquidating their assets, their properties back home, they keep the assets and they live off the income that the asset or the assets generate, which is a much safer way than liquidating the assets and moving all that money to a country where you have little to any legal strength. And obviously we're talking about the East here. We're talking about Asia. We're talking about the Middle East. You know, people don't typically do that, even though in certain places like Singapore, Hong Kong, you as a foreigner, you as a resident, you have more protection than in very undeveloped places, you know, that happen to be nearby. But if you were to move to a country, let's say in Latin America, where you get the same civil and property rights, you're actually in a favorable position to liquidate your assets back home and use that money that you made to repurchase those assets in, say, Latin America. How many millionaires exist in your country and where are you currently located? Leave a comment below and let us know. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'm uploading new videos on digital nomad locations, travel updates, and investment advice several times a week right now. And if you got some more time left, check out these videos.